There is a place on this earth so remote that the British government runs it from an office in Auckland, New Zealand, 5,000 kilometers away. A place so small it does not have a hospital, a police station, or a single road that goes anywhere useful. A place where the supply ship comes 4 times a year, and if it does not, the island simply waits. A place where right now, as you watch this video, roughly 40 to 50 people are going about their entire lives on a volcanic rock 2 miles long and 1 mile wide, surrounded by nothing but open Pacific Ocean in every direction. It is called Pitcairn Island, and it is the most isolated, permanently inhabited place on the planet. Not the most remote place that ever had people, the most remote place that still does, right now, today. Getting there is not a holiday, it is an ordeal. You fly first to Tahiti or New Zealand, which already puts you further from home than most people travel in a year. Then you board a cargo supply vessel and spend between 3 and 5 days at sea. No other islands, no landmarks. Just the Pacific doing what the Pacific does, which is being enormous and indifferent and occasionally terrifying. When Pitcairn finally appears on the horizon, it rises out of the water like something that was not supposed to be there. Dark green cliffs, dense forest, a jagged volcanic outline against the sky. The kind of thing you see and immediately understand why sailors throughout history thought the ocean was full of monsters. Some things that look wrong from a distance are actually extraordinary up close, and then you realize you still cannot get ashore. Pitcairn has no harbor, no pier, no dock of any kind. The island's coastline is mostly sheer cliff and rolling surf. To reach land, the islanders launch what they call longboats through the waves at Bounty Bay, the only viable landing point, and they come out to meet you. You climb down from the supply ship into one of these boats and they take you in through the surf. If the weather is bad, which it frequently is, nobody comes and nobody goes. The island simply closes. You can be sitting on a ship within sight of the cliffs and still be completely unable to reach the shore. This is Pitcairn's defining characteristic. Not its beauty, not its history, not its extraordinary story. Its inaccessibility. The island does not just exist far away, it actively resists being reached. Once your feet are on the ground, if you are one of the very few visitors who ever makes it, you walk up a path the islanders call the Hill of Difficulty. That name was not chosen ironically. It is steep, it is long, and it leads to Adamstown, which is both the capital of Pitcairn Island and its only settlement. The capital of a territory with 40 to 50 residents, depending on the year. A capital city with one church, one school, one general store that opens twice a week if supplies have not run out, and one tiny post office where mail arrives every few months on the same boat that brings the food and the medicine and the fuel. The entire population knows every other person on the island by name, by history, by which family they came from, and which house their grandmother lived in. In a place this size, there is no such thing as a stranger passing through. There is no passing through. You either live here or you made an extraordinary effort to visit, and either way, everyone knows who you are within hours of your arrival. So how do 40-odd people actually survive here? The answer is that they do everything themselves. Every family grows food: bananas, papaya, breadfruit, sweet potato, taro. Chickens wander freely. The men fish from the cliffs in the evenings, casting lines into deep water for tuna and wahoo. There is no fresh water source on the island. No river, no lake, no spring. Every drop of water the community uses comes from rain collected in tanks. During droughts, showers become bucket baths, and every liter is rationed deliberately. Power comes from solar panels and diesel generators. When a generator breaks down, there is no repair shop, no parts warehouse, no next-day delivery. The islanders fix it themselves, with whatever tools they have and whatever materials they can find. An old piece of metal becomes a critical component. A piece of rope becomes a solution. Nothing is thrown away. Nothing is wasted. Everything is repaired until it physically cannot be repaired anymore. And then it is repaired again. Until February 2024, the only internet connection on Pitcairn was a slow, expensive satellite link that disappeared entirely when the weather turned. Emails took minutes to load. Video calls were essentially impossible. In 2022, the connection deteriorated so badly that by early 2023, the island was without internet or phone for 3 consecutive months. 3 months, completely cut off from every person and every piece of information outside these 2 square miles of rock and forest. In February 2024, Starlink finally arrived. For the first time in its history, Pitcairn Island has reliable broadband. The outside world came to the island not by boat but by satellite signal. And after more than 2 centuries of isolation, it is still a genuinely recent development. But to understand why any of this matters, you have to go back to where it all began. Back to a ship, back to a mutiny, back to one of the most famous acts of rebellion in naval history, and the desperate decision that followed it, a decision that created the community living on this island today. Back to 1789 and the burning of the Bounty. On the 28th of April, 1789, somewhere in the South Pacific, a man named Fletcher Christian made a decision that would echo for more than 2 centuries. He was the acting lieutenant aboard HMS Bounty, a British naval vessel on a mission to transport breadfruit plants from Tahiti to the Caribbean. It sounds straightforward. It was not. The voyage had been going for months. The crew had spent an extended, comfortable layover in Tahiti, long enough to form attachments, relationships, a life that felt nothing like the discipline and hardship waiting for them on the open ocean. And their captain, William Bligh, was not a man who made the return to that discipline easy. History has gone back and forth on Bligh. He was not the cartoonish tyrant that Hollywood made him in 3 separate films starring, in order, Charles Laughton, Marlon Brando, and Mel Gibson. He was by some accounts a genuinely skilled navigator, famously capable under pressure. But he was also a man with a sharp and unpredictable temper, prone to humiliating his officers in front of the crew. And the combination of a comfortable Tahitian paradise fading in the wake and a captain who treated his men like furniture was apparently more than Fletcher Christian was willing to endure. He led the mutiny in the early hours of the morning. Bligh was pulled from his cabin, bound, and put into the ship's launch along with 18 loyal crew members. That small open boat was then set adrift in the Pacific with minimal supplies and no guarantee that anyone aboard it would survive. William Bligh, against all reasonable expectation, sailed that boat nearly 4,000 miles to safety. It is one of the great feats of navigation in history, and it meant that the British Navy now knew exactly what had happened and exactly who was responsible. Fletcher Christian had committed mutiny. The penalty was death, and he knew it. The mutineers sailed back to Tahiti, where 16 of the crew chose to stay and take their chances. Christian knew that Tahiti would be the first place the Navy looked. He needed somewhere else, somewhere the maps did not show clearly, somewhere the British would never think to search. He found Pitcairn Island listed in an old chart with its coordinates recorded incorrectly, placing it miles from where it actually sat in the ocean. It was uninhabited. It was invisible. It was perfect. In January 1790, the Bounty anchored off Pitcairn's coast. Christian's group included 9 mutineers, 6 Tahitian men, and 12 Tahitian women. They unloaded everything useful from the ship: tools, supplies, livestock, anything that could help them build a life on this rock. And then, in a decision that tells you everything about how seriously Christian understood the situation, they burned the Bounty to the waterline. The smoke rose over the cliffs and drifted out over the Pacific. The ship was gone. The only way off the island was gone. There would be no rescue, no return, no second thoughts. Whatever happened next happened here. They had chosen this island, and now the island had chosen them back. For about 3 years, things worked after a fashion. Families formed. Children were born. The steep volcanic land was cleared and planted. A settlement began to take shape on the plateau above the bay. From a distance, if you could have seen it, it might have looked like the beginning of something. It was not. What happened in the years that followed the burning of the Bounty is the part of the Pitcairn story that gets quietly skipped in the romantic version. The one with the movies and the adventure and the daring escape from naval justice. The reality was considerably darker. The Tahitian men had been brought to Pitcairn, but were never treated as equals. The English mutineers claimed land and authority and left the Tahitian men with neither. Resentments built. Tensions that had been suppressed by the shared urgency of survival began to surface. By 1793, those tensions became violence. The Tahitian men rose up. Several mutineers were killed. Retaliations followed. Counter-violence followed that. By the time the killing stopped, 13 of the original settlers were dead, including Fletcher Christian himself, murdered during the uprising. By the early 1800s, of the 9 mutineers who had landed on Pitcairn, only one was still alive. His name was John Adams. He was living on the island with 9 women and a collection of children who had been born there and had never known any other world. When an American whaling vessel called the Topaz stumbled across Pitcairn in 1808, the outside world discovered that the community still existed. Adams was eventually granted amnesty by the British Admiralty, partly because prosecuting the last surviving mutineer, who had by then established himself as a community patriarch and religious leader, seemed more trouble than it was worth. The island became famous. Famous in the way that remote, unlikely places become famous when the story attached to them is extraordinary enough. Books were written. Then came the films. The mutiny on the Bounty entered the cultural imagination as a story of adventure and rebellion and the human desire for freedom. Pitcairn became the paradise those rebels had found, a place where the descendants of outlaws had built something peaceful and self-sufficient and strangely beautiful at the end of the world. That story was true. It was also, it turned out, profoundly incomplete. In 1999, a British police officer named Gail Cox arrived on Pitcairn for what was intended to be a routine community liaison posting. She was from Kent. She had no particular reason to expect what she found. Shortly after her arrival, a woman approached her quietly and told her that a young girl had been raped. Cox began talking to people, and the more people she talked to, the worse it became. What investigators eventually uncovered was a pattern of sexual abuse that had been operating on Pitcairn for decades, possibly generations. Girls as young as 7 had been abused by men in the community. The abuse was not hidden in the way such things are usually hidden. It was, according to testimony given during the subsequent investigation, normalized. An Australian pastor who had lived on the island told investigators he had raised his concerns with the island's council and been told bluntly that the age of consent on Pitcairn had always been 12 and that it did not hurt anyone. The investigation, which was codenamed Operation Unique, ultimately uncovered over 100 allegations of abuse against 31 men. In 2004, 7 men were put on trial. The trial itself was extraordinary in ways that went far beyond the charges. It was held in Pitcairn's Community Hall, converted into a makeshift courtroom with judges flown in from New Zealand and victims testifying via video link from Auckland, because none of them still lived on the island. The defendants included the island's mayor, Steve Christian, a direct descendant of Fletcher Christian. His son Randy was also among the accused. The practical problem facing the court was one that had never arisen in quite this form before. Pitcairn's male population was so small that imprisoning a significant number of men simultaneously would threaten the island's basic functioning. The longboats that connected Pitcairn to supply ships required strong, experienced crew. The generators needed maintenance. The infrastructure of basic survival depended on the labor of the same men now standing trial. There were genuine discussions about whether sending the island's men to prison might amount to a collective punishment of everyone on Pitcairn, including the victims themselves. 6 of the 7 men were found guilty. The sentences ranged from community service to 6 years in prison. The prison they would serve their time in was one they had helped to build themselves, constructed specifically because Pitcairn had never previously had one. Steve Christian, the mayor convicted of 5 rapes, received 3 years. His son Randy received 6, the harshest sentence handed down. They appealed through every court available, up to the Privy Council in London, arguing among other things that Pitcairn had never truly been under British jurisdiction. Every appeal failed. The story that the world had been told about Pitcairn, the paradise built by rebels, the idyllic community at the end of the earth, had always been missing something. What it was missing was the question of what happens when a tiny group of people is left completely alone, beyond the reach of law or oversight or accountability, for long enough that their own norms become the only norms that exist. The answer in Pitcairn's case was not paradise. It was something considerably darker. A reminder that isolation does not make people better. It just makes whatever they already are harder to see from the outside. The trials changed Pitcairn in ways that are still being felt today. Some families left. The population, already small, shrank further. The community that had survived for over 2 centuries suddenly looked, for the first time, genuinely fragile. And the question that had always been there beneath the romance and the adventure now sat in full view. Could Pitcairn survive at all? Here is something that does not appear in any travel brochure about Pitcairn Island, mostly because there are no travel brochures about Pitcairn Island. There is no tourism industry to speak of, no hotel, no guest house built for paying visitors. If you want to stay on the island, you need permission from the Island Council, a visa that costs 300 New Zealand dollars just to apply for, and somewhere to sleep that the community agrees to provide. The entire visitor infrastructure of one of Britain's 14 overseas territories consists essentially of people saying yes or no to your email and hoping the supply ship schedule works out. And yet people try. Every year, a handful of travelers make the journey, endure the days at sea, ride the longboat through the surf, and climb the hill of difficulty just to spend time in a place that most of the world does not know exists. There is something about Pitcairn that pulls at people, the same quality that made the mutineer's story famous. The idea that somewhere out there, past all the noise and speed and connectivity of the modern world, there is a place that operates by entirely different rules. That idea is true. It just comes with complications the romantic version leaves out. What a day actually looks like. The people of Pitcairn wake early. The equatorial Pacific light comes fast and bright, and the island's rhythms are built around it. Gardens need tending before the heat builds. Fishing is better in the early morning and the evening. The generators that power the island run on diesel that arrives by supply ship and costs money. The community budget has to account for carefully, so power is used deliberately rather than casually. There is a community workday system on Pitcairn that has no real equivalent anywhere else. Called public work, it is a scheduled day when the entire adult population works together on communal tasks. Clearing paths, maintaining the island's quad bike tracks, which are the closest thing Pitcairn has to roads, repairing the longboats, tending shared infrastructure. On an island this small, the line between private life and community responsibility is not a line so much as a permanent overlap. Everything that keeps the island functioning requires everyone. The single school serves whatever children happen to be living on Pitcairn at any given time. Class sizes have been as small as 1. The teacher, who is typically recruited from New Zealand on a fixed-term contract, teaches whatever age range the current student population represents, which might span a decade of school years in a single classroom. When the children reach secondary school age, they leave the island for New Zealand. Most of them do not come back. That detail is the one that matters most for Pitcairn's future, and we will come back to it. The store opens twice a week if it has stock. The post office handles the mail that arrives with each supply ship, which visits roughly 4 times a year on a schedule that weather and logistics frequently disrupt. Medical care is provided by a nurse, usually another contract worker from outside, with serious cases requiring evacuation to New Zealand by ship, or in genuine emergencies, by whatever transport can be arranged at significant cost and considerable delay. There is no dentist permanently on the island. A visiting dentist arrives occasionally. Between visits, the islanders manage. The thing that strikes every visitor who writes about their time on Pitcairn is not the hardship. It is the competence. These are people who can fix anything, grow almost anything, navigate seas that would defeat most experienced sailors, and maintain a functioning community with the kind of population that most villages in the developed world would consider insufficient to run a post office. The skills required to live on Pitcairn are not 1 or 2 deep specializations. They are everything, held simultaneously, passed down from parents to children, the way the island's Polynesian-inflected English dialect is passed down, as something both practical and deeply personal. The dialect itself is worth a moment. Pitcairners, as the language is called, is spoken only on this island. It developed from the combination of 18th century English sailors' speech and the Tahitian language of the women who came with them, and it has evolved in complete isolation ever since. Phrases and constructions that exist nowhere else on Earth. A language spoken by fewer people than attend a small school assembly. When the last Pitcairner speaker dies, the language dies with them. That is not a distant theoretical concern. It is a present one. The economy of almost nothing. Pitcairn's economy is, by any conventional measure, tiny. The island receives financial support from the British government. It sells postage stamps, which have been collector's items since the island's story became internationally known, and which generate revenue far disproportionate to their postage function. It sells honey produced from bees kept on the island and marketed as some of the most remote honey on Earth, which it genuinely is. It sells handcrafted goods, carvings, woven items, jewelry made from materials found on the island, through an online artisan shop. Since 2024, Starlink has made it possible for people to work remotely from Pitcairn for the first time in the island's history. This is not a small development. For the first time, someone with a job that exists entirely online could theoretically live on Pitcairn and remain professionally functional. The island is now actively trying to attract what are sometimes called digital nomads, people who work remotely and could in theory do so from anywhere, including a volcanic rock in the South Pacific with 40 residents and no supermarket. There is also the Bounty itself. The wreck of the ship that Fletcher Christian burned in Bounty Bay in 1790 still sits on the ocean floor, partially intact, and has become one of the most historically significant wreck sites in the Pacific. Divers who make the journey to Pitcairn can explore it. The anchor was recovered and sits in Adamstown as a monument to the event that started everything. The Bounty is not just Pitcairn's history, it is one of its few genuine tourist attractions, sitting underwater in the bay that bears its name, 235 years after it was set alight by the people who built this community. What remains? There are ancient Polynesian carvings in the caves and cliffs of Pitcairn that predate the mutineers by centuries, symbols and markings whose meanings have never been fully decoded. Evidence that people were here before Fletcher Christian, before the Bounty, before any of the story that the world knows. Those people are gone. The island outlasted them and then forgot them, leaving only marks on stone that nobody now living can read. The islanders today are aware of this precedent in a way that does not need to be stated directly. They have all done the calculation. They know what a shrinking population curve looks like and where it ends. They know that 230 years of survival does not guarantee 231. They are not naive about what they are facing, and yet they stay. The ones who are there now, who were born there or chose to move there, or came on a contract and found they could not quite bring themselves to leave. They wake up every morning to the sound of the Pacific. They climb paths their great-grandparents carved into the hillside. They speak a language that exists nowhere else. They maintain a community that by any rational calculation should not still exist and somehow does. Pitcairn Island is a place built on a crime, sustained by extraordinary resilience, and damaged by a darkness that isolation allowed to grow unchecked for too long. It is not the paradise the movies described. It is something more complicated and more interesting than that. A real place with a real community carrying a real history that contains both remarkable courage and genuine horror in proportions that do not simplify neatly into either a love story or a cautionary tale. It is both. It has always been both. 40 people, 2 miles of volcanic rock, 235 years of a story that the rest of the world keeps being surprised to learn is still going. For now, the longboats still launch through the surf, the gardens still grow, the generators still run, and somewhere on a plateau above Bounty Bay, at the end of a path called the Hill of Difficulty, the smallest permanent community on Earth is still, against all reasonable expectation, here.